Hello everyone, and welcome to the World War Photographer channel. Today we will talk about the Battle of Midway and the Aleutian campaign. Don't forget to subscribe to support our work. It truly means a lot to us. The USS Enterprise aircraft carrier is seen at Ford Island in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, in late May 1942, being prepared for the Battle of Midway. An SBD-3 dive bomber from Bombing Squadron 6 is shown on the deck of USS Yorktown. The aircraft was piloted by Ensign G.H. Goldsmith and Arm 3 C.J.W. Patterson Jr. during the June 4, 1942, strike against the Japanese carrier Akagi. You can notice the battle damage on the tail. TBD-1 torpedo bombers of Torpedo Squadron 6 unfold their wings on the USS Enterprise's deck before launching an attack against 4 enemy carriers on the first day of the Battle of Midway. The squadron launched its attack on June 4th and lost 10 of 14 aircraft during the mission. A view of the stern quarter of the USS Enterprise in the Pacific. A Grumman F-4F-4 Wildcat fighter takes off from USS Yorktown on a combat air patrol on June 4th. This aircraft, number 13 of Fighting Squadron 3, was piloted by the squadron executive officer, Lieutenant William N. Leonard. 50 caliber machine gun on the right and mattresses for splinter protection on the lifeline are visible. The carrier Hiryu maneuvers to avoid bombs dropped by Army Air Force's B-17 Flying Fortresses during the Battle of Midway on June 4th. U.S. Navy Lieutenant Commander Maxwell F. Leslie, commanding officer of Bombing Squadron VB-3, ditches into the ocean near the heavy cruiser USS Astoria after successfully attacking the Japanese carrier Soryu. Black smoke rises from a burning U.S. oil tank that was set on fire during a Nazi air raid on Naval Air Station Midway. Despite the significant damage, the airstrip remained operational. A VB-8 SBD lands far off center, flying over the head of the landing signal officer aboard USS Hornet. Japanese Type 97 shipboard attack aircraft from the carrier Hiryu are seen amid heavy anti-aircraft fire during their torpedo attack on USS Yorktown. At least 3 planes are visible, with the closest having already dropped its torpedo and the others withdrawing. Smoke rises from the USS Yorktown after an enemy bomber hit the aircraft carrier. This scene aboard USS Yorktown shows the aftermath of being hit by 3 Japanese bombs. The dense smoke is caused by fires in the uptakes, where a bomb punctured and knocked out the boilers. The panorama was taken from the starboard side of the flight deck. A man with a hammer is likely sealing a bomb entry hole in the forward elevator. Black smoke pours from the aircraft carrier, which suffered hits from enemy aircraft during the raid. Navy fighters engaged the Japanese fleet during the attack off Midway, with a burning Nazi ship visible at the center. A Nazi Type 97 attack aircraft is shot down while attempting to carry out a torpedo attack during the mid-afternoon of June 4th. A U.S. Navy photographer captures a close aerial view of a heavy cruiser of the Mogami class, which was demolished by Navy bombs. The armored plate, steel decks, and superstructure are in a collapsed heap. The aircraft carrier Soryu is seen attempting to avoid bombs dropped by Army Air Force's B-17 Flying Fortresses. Crewmen navigate the sloping flight deck, heading for damaged sections to patch up the crippled ship after it was struck. The heavily damaged burning aircraft carrier Hiryu is captured in a photo from the carrier Hosho shortly after sunrise. Hiryu sank a few hours later, with the collapsed flight deck above the forward hangar visible. USS Yorktown is seen listing heavily to port after being struck by bombers and torpedo planes. A destroyer stands by at the right to assist as a salvage crew on the flight deck tries to stabilize the stricken aircraft carrier. After being damaged by Japanese bombers, crewmen climbed down ropes and ladders into small boats, which transferred them to rescue ships, including the destroyer seen at right. Later, a salvage crew returned to the abandoned ship, and as it moved toward port, an enemy submarine torpedoed and sank the Yorktown. The USS destroyer Hammond, seen in the background, sank after being hit by a torpedo. The Hammond had been providing auxiliary power to the damaged ship during salvage operations. The same attack struck Yorktown, which sank the next morning. Crewmen from another US warship are seen at the rail, standing by to rescue survivors. A US seaman is transferred between warships at sea. Prisoners of war captured by USS Ballard on Midway after being rescued from a lifeboat are under guard in June 1942. After being held for a few days, they were sent to Pearl Harbor on USS Sirius on June 23rd. Attu Island, Alaska, was home to about 46 people before the Nazi invasion. On June 6, 1942, 1,100 soldiers landed and occupied the island. One resident died during the invasion, and the remaining 45 were sent to a Japanese prison camp in Otaru, Hokkaido, where 16 died. On June 3, 1942, an aircraft carrier strike force launched air attacks over 2 days against Dutch Harbor Naval Base and Fort Mears in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. In this image, bombs explode in the water near Dutch Harbor during the attack on June 4, 1942. US forces watch as a massive fireball rises above Dutch Harbor, Alaska, after an enemy airstrike. During the Japanese air attacks of June 3rd to 4th, US forces defend Dutch Harbor, Alaska. Carrier-based aircraft bomb the SS Northwestern and oil tanks in Dutch Harbor, Alaska. US soldiers fight a fire after Japanese dive bombers raided their base in Dutch Harbor, Alaska in June 1942. Oil tanks, the SS Northwestern, a beached transport ship, and warehouses are set ablaze after air raids. The ruins of a bombed ship are visible on June 5th. Japanese forces on Kiska Island have laid out decoy aircraft on June 18th. A US Army Air Forces plane drops bombs on Nazi-occupied territory in the Aleutians in 1943. Bombs explode on occupied island on August 10th. A Japanese ship is aground in Kiska Harbor on September 18th. Dozens of bombs fall from a US bomber on occupied island Alaska on August 10th. Craters from previous bombing runs and zigzag trenches dug by the Japanese are visible. Adak Harbor in the Aleutians is home to a large US fleet anchored and ready to move against Kiska in August 1943. USS Pruitt leads landing craft from USS Hayward toward their landing beaches in Massacre Bay, Attu, on May 11th during the invasion. Pruitt used radar and a searchlight to guide the boats 9 miles through the fog. The faint beam from the searchlight is visible in the photo. Landing boats carrying soldiers and equipment land on the beach at Massacre Bay, Attu Island, on May 11th. The American and Canadian troops successfully took control of Attu within 2 weeks after intense fighting with the enemy forces. Of the Allied troops, 549 were killed and 1,148 wounded, while only 29 of the Japanese troops survived. US burial teams counted 2,351 dead, with many others unaccounted for. A Canadian member of the American-Canadian Landing Force aims a Japanese machine gun found in a trench on Kiska Island on August 16th. After the brutal fighting to retake Attu Island, US and Canadian forces were prepared for a tough fight. Unknown to the Allies, the enemies had evacuated all their troops 2 weeks earlier. The invasion was unopposed, Though 32 soldiers died in friendly fire incidents, 4 more by booby traps, and 191 were listed as missing in action. Wrecked Nazi planes, oil drums and other debris are scattered on Aleutian Islands on August 19, 1943, following Allied bombings. A photograph taken after the island was recaptured by Allied forces shows the badly damaged Midget submarine base built by Japanese forces on Kiska Island. After Allied troops landed, a grave marker was discovered in a small graveyard amid the bombed-out ruins in August 1943. The marker, made and placed by the Japanese army, honored an American pilot who had crashed on the island. It reads, "Sleeping here, a brave air hero who lost youth and happiness for his motherland. July 25th, Nippon Army." Thanks for watching until the end. If you enjoyed these historical World War photos, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.